graphic is showing the difference in their hair formations. Battlestar Galactica 1978 was lasers exploding in space.
Battlestar Galactica 1978 was a depiction of how life here began out there.
Oh, it's my turn. Sorry. Battlestar Galactica was always at a 10 with a voice always like this.
Battlestar Galactica was an apocalyptic emotional roller coaster.
Awesome. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Fallingtower's Watch the First podcast, the podcast in which we watch the first episode of a series so that you don't have to. As you may have guessed, we're doing a review of Battlestar Galactica, the original from 1978. Of course, you know our co-host, Vice Provost for Academic Affairs at Duke University, Dr. Mohammed Noor, is here.
Hello. Always a pleasure to be on Fallingtower's Watch the First of Things.
Kelly Park is here. She is an actress, and she is super effervescent, which kind of sounds redundant, but she is. Sounds like you're muted, too.
Am I muted?
Oh, no, you're not. Okay. That was just really good pantomiming.
I don't see the red thing.
We also have, you might remember her, Dr. Tanya Harrison of NASA, Mars, actually Tanya of Mars, almost literally. Welcome.
Thanks so much. Good to be back.
All right.
Great to have you.
This is going to be a lot of fun, everybody. So if you'd like us to review a show, in the comments below, just type in WTF and the show you'd like us to review. Of course, this is sci-fi month. So that's the only reason we're doing science fiction, not because we're big nerds. So please be sure
to just randomly
this...
have shirts that say Battlestar Galactica.
It look like they're from 1978.
Yeah, right. And trust it. Just trust it.
Oh, nice.
Let's just get into it. Everybody knows what's going on here. This is going to be a lot of fun. By the way, this is during Virtual Trek Con. So hello, everybody watching Virtual Trek Con. We have two bona fide scientists here, and we got a fantasy person. We got a nerd. This is going to be fun. First things first, Mohammed, tell us where to go. We're lost.
This is the section we call the predictaments. This is where each of us predict what we thought of the show on a score of 1 to 10. Do you want to go first,
lost now? Yeah. All right. Mohammed and I have known each other for a few years. Kelly and I have known each other. Must have been 10 years, something.
We're going on.
Give or take 5. Mm-hmm. And Tanya and I, we met last year when we recorded Virtual Trek Con 3. So we know each other fairly well, kind of. Mohammed, I predict that you've seen this whole series. And by whole series, I mean, what is it, like a dozen or 2 episodes? Because it was one season. Yeah. I predict that you've seen it all, but not terribly recently. Scratch that. I feel like you have seen it at least a second time recently, and you like it very much. And it was kind of a blast for the past for you, and you're going to be pretty high on this. Kelly, I think you're going to be like, wow, lots of lasers and explosions, and I kind of wanted to like it, but it was also kind of weird. But, you're going to be somewhat favorable. Tanya, I think there were more than a few times that you raised your eyebrows and were like, okay, suspension of disbelief. And you had heard of this show and possibly had seen little bits and pieces in your life, but probably not all of it. And so you're moderately favorable on this as well. But what do you think, Mohammed? What are your predictions?
So Ryan, I predict, I know you've seen the more recent Battlestar Galactica series. I'm pretty sure you have not seen this one before, especially given the number of times I sent you the link for it too. I'm pretty sure you haven't seen it before. I think you're going to be mixed on it. I think there's some elements you're going to think like, oh, that actually was pretty good. And I think some else you're like, oh, seriously? Kelly, you're very upbeat in general. I think you're gonna give this a pass on some of the more problematic pieces to it. So I think you're going to come in moderately high. Tanya, I'm going to guess you actually have seen the show, like Ryan said, and that maybe there'll be some reminiscences in here too, but also a little bit of like, oh gosh, yeah, I'm glad it's not like that anymore. So that's my overall prediction.
Kelly, any predictions on your end?
Well, I think Ryan, I think you like it. I mean, I think because from what I picked up in bits and pieces, I mean, and also your show has an entire month dedicated to sci-fi. So I will say I'm picking up some bits and pieces here, but I think you do like it. I think that, despite the date or whatever, I think you really liked it. Mohammed loved it. I bet you just LOVE loved it because that's just, I follow you on all the social medias and your Instas are like, I think this is right up your alley. Now, Tanya, I don't really know you that well. I've known you for
at all
about 8 minutes now. And I'm thinking you liked it. I'm thinking you enjoyed it. But I'm thinking it's not really a jam. Even though you're like, Rover Tanya, But I think we'll see. But we'll see. Stay tuned.
Your thoughts, Tanya? Pressure's on.
Well, Kelly kind of took almost exactly what I was going to say about you, Ryan. I figured if you are dedicating a whole month to sci-fi programming, you probably were into this. I think we're all also old enough that we can appreciate some of the camp of like 70s sci-fi that maybe doesn't quite age so well. I think if you took someone that was 18 and showed them this version of Battlestar Galactica, the response might be a little bit different. Mohammed, you got the shirt on. Of course, you loved it. And Kelly, you seem like I've only met you again for like, what did you say, 8 minutes? So you seem very positive. So I don't know if you can be negative about anything in the little bit of time that I've seen you. So I feel like you had a lot of fun with this.
Awesome. I thought the same until recently. Kelly devoured something. I don't remember what it was, but she destroyed one of the shows recently. Remember what that was, Mohammed?
I'm trying to remember too. I do remember that. Like, what it was. Was it Willow?
No, it wasn't. Anyway, so everybody, just go watch all of our episodes, and eventually you'll see one that Kelly said something kind of bad about. All right. So everybody at home, it's time to make your predictions. Do you think I liked this old ass show? Do you think Mohammed liked it? Do you think Kelly enjoyed this dusty show? What about Tanya? Your thoughts? Let us know in the comments below or in the live chat if you think we liked it or not. And while you're typing away feverishly, no stress, take your time. Dr. Mohammed Noor is going to buy you a little bit of time by telling us all what this show is even about.
I'm trying to think of shows you've done that are older. You've definitely done Star Trek, the animated series, which is older. And you've definitely done Twilight Zone. Doctor Who. Yeah, so you've got several shows older than this
was like a million.
Anyway, for this show, on the eve of a highly anticipated armistice with the robotic Cylons, a squadron from the 12 human colonies unexpectedly comes under attack. We learn that the Cylons had no intention of honoring the armistice and that a human, Baltar, intentionally sold out his own people. The Cylons destroy just about all the human space fleet, minus one Battlestar, and decimate all of the 12 human colony planets. The commander of the Battlestar Galactica assembles a civilian space fleet of the survivors, many of whom now live in squalor, and begins a search to another galaxy to find the mythical 13th human colony, known as Earth.
Nice.
Thank you.
All right. So hopefully everybody, you are done typing away and debating whether it was squalor or not. It was squalor. Let's move on to the next phase, which is where we compare and contrast what we expected versus what we got, right, Mr. Noor?
That's correct. It's the section I like to call expect-gettions, because we talk a little bit about what we expect. We talk a lot about what we getchin. Sorry, Kelly. Didn't mean to hit you.
Wow. I was getting a little nervous,
Oh, yeah.
Flying like a butterfly and stinging like a bee.
Always say that about me as a kid. So, Muhammad Ali versus Muhammad.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that works. That works very well then. Okay. Dr. Muhammad Noor, before you watch this first episode of Battlestar Galactica from, oh, by the way, entitled Part 1, that's cool. What did you expect, if anything?
Well, I can't remember before I saw it the first time because I was a kid when I saw it the first time. I was like 8. I don't remember what I was thinking going into that. I guess relative to this time, Ryan was correct on the leading up to this watch that I had watched it as a kid, and I did also rewatch the entire series with my son when he was younger too. So it just is something to watch. And actually, I was trying to remember if we actually watched the modern one together too. I don't remember if we did. We may not. I can't remember. But yeah, I mean, I remember the overarching story very well. There was a lot of things coming to this episode that I didn't remember the very specifics about. So, I knew the overarching, the 12 colonies piece. I remember the similarities to the modern series, which I've seen much more recently. But like some of the very specifics of how this got laid out, I didn't exactly remember. But of course, I knew it was the 12 colonies, the human people being chased by these robotic Cylons that look kind of ridiculous. I remember that they show the same scenes over and over again of the fighting so, through the entire series, by the way. But yeah, so I was looking forward to it coming in, and we'll see what I got in a minute.
Mm-hmm. Now, Kelly, what did you expect before you watched this first episode, if anything?
The only thing I expected was Star Wars. That's it.
At the same time.
It's literally Star Wars, but different people, different caricatures. And I wasn't even sure how far, I mean, I assume it's its own, galaxy or whatever. But yeah, I was like, all right, here we go, Starbucks. From Star Wars meets coffee, and so yeah, that's where I was at.
I could see the coffee aspect in this episode for sure. It's kind of pepped. What about you, Tanya? Did you expect anything? Did you know what to expect?
I watched the show as a kid, but it's been long enough that I don't think I ever rewatched the original series anytime past the age of maybe like 10 or something. So I kind of remembered generally, Cylons. I remembered that they were built by aliens as opposed to the new series where they were built by humans, and some of the differences there. But I didn't remember or expect so many similarities to the new show. Like, I was obsessed with the new series, so I found myself like constantly comparing what I was seeing to, this little detail carried over and this little detail carried over. So that was kind of cool to see. And even just the colonial anthem kicking in the beginning, I'm also really obsessed with the soundtracks from the new series. So like the little bit of nostalgia kicking in of like the old theme song was like, oh yeah, this was pretty epic for the time. Like, I feel like you're coming into this big ceremony as they're coming into the armistice. Like, it's a really good lead into that.
Okay. Well, I'll tell y'all what I expected, if anything. I had not seen this show, but I was very aware of it. I remember imagery of like Cylons, or I don't remember if that means I saw bits of it when I was a kid, or if it's just in the lore of science fiction. Like, I know all about Doctor Who, and I've never watched any episodes except for 2 just recently, but I know Daleks, I know sonic screwdrivers, I know timey-wimey, even though, you're kind of aware of things in the sci-fi world or universe. And I had seen the newer version from the legendary Ronald D. Moore several years back as well. So I was familiar with that. And I remember when I was a kid, somebody bought me and my brother some jackets that looked very similar to the ones they're wearing behind Muhammad. And they were fucking awesome. They were so cool. But what sucks about getting a cool, amazing jacket when you're like 6 or 8 is that after about a year, it's too small. But I really liked it. It was really cool. And it wasn't exactly like that, but it was similar. So I feel like it was inspired by that. Anyway, so that's what I knew. I thought it was going to be pretty cheesy 45 years ago. I also was good friends with Richard Hatch, great guy. So I was looking forward to seeing him in this show. I also know Herb Jefferson Jr. very well. So I was looking forward to seeing him. The others, so that's where I was. I was hoping it was going to be good, but not too confident that it was going to be good because it did get canceled after one season. So
Well,
Not a
kind
good
of.
sign.
There was that subsequent thing, Galactica 1980, right after it. So,
See, I don't know anything
That
about
was the one
that.
that had the flying bicycles, right?
oh my God, that was terrible. That's not one to go watch.
It's the only thing I remember.
Oh no.
Terrible.
Well, that's next. Everybody in the comments below, type WTF. What was it? Galactica 19.
Galactica 1980.
Okay, cool. And well, that's what we expected. Dr. Muhammad Noor, upon viewing this first episode, what did you actually get?
Well, before I say that, I'm going to actually comment on one thing that Tanya said. I'd actually forgotten about the whole silence were made by these like reptilian things. I'd forgotten about that completely until I was like, oh yeah, that's right. I'll say right off the bat, there's that Los Angeles Philharmonic Orchestra intro. Goosebumps, man. I was like, oh, I love that theme song so much. So that was the start to it. Yeah, there weren't too many big surprises. There were things I didn't remember. So several times I was going, oh yeah, that. I have a list of goods and a list of bads. I'll just read off some of them. For the good, I thought the overall plot was really interesting, and obviously it's one that they came back to almost perfectly in the reboot series. I liked the story and the progression of the story too, as it was going on. I found the characters mostly pretty relatable, though I had some problems with Starbuck. I'll come back to that later on. I definitely thought the grief was moving in there, just as everybody's watching the devastation on their planets, like, oh, ooh, that hurts. Yeah. And it just, generally speaking, it felt like a good setup for an overall show. So those are things that I like. Things I didn't like is definitely I felt like the fight scenes dragged. Like, okay, choo 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 choo. Okay, I'm kind of done with the choo 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 choo. Setting aside the sound effects too. I didn't like that we never really understood what the motives were. Like, why would Baltar sell out all of humanity? Like, okay, you want to be the only person left? And why? There were some things like that which I didn't really get, and then I don't. Thinking back to the series, I don't remember if we ever found out, but maybe we do. I don't remember now. Anyway, I don't want to take up too much time. I'll let Kelly go, and then I'll add more things. But overall, I enjoyed the nostalgia. I enjoyed revisiting and seeing things I hadn't remembered. But there were some things where there's definitely some points where I'll say it like that.
What about you, Kelly? What did you actually get?
Oh my. Well,
oh, here it comes.
Hi Tanya, I'm Kelly, and I got a very watered down version of Star Wars, and they always talked like this the entire time. The entire time. They just there's people on my trail. Well, we better lose them. They're about to blow up your ship. What? Really? Like he's like cruising, right? And he's like, and they're like pew 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 pew. But like it's not like here, they're just yeah. But he's like, yeah, they're coming up on me. They're coming up. I feel it. I can feel my ship has blowing up on the side of me. Well, I guess that's just a bummer, huh? So I got, I will say, I loved the storyline. I thought it was really fun. I thought it had a good setup. You're right. I mean, there's things like, yeah, why would you want to be the only human? But at the same time, I'm like, I'll go with it. That's cool. And I like that, they were fighting for humanity. We're going to go find planet Earth because where are they going to find planet Earth? Like, I'm from Earth. Like, we're from Earth. Like, we're Earthlings. So what are you going to see when you get there? Like, we'll find out.
That's Galactica 1980.
Yeah, you show up or whatever. So that part's really cool. But then, like I say, oh, man, that was your brother? That was my son. The one that just... which he blew up from the inside, by the way. They shot him and the ship didn't blow up, his head did. And then the ship kind of
That's science.
That was weird.
Yeah. And then
he
goes, what happened? What happened down there? That was my son. Was it? Bummer, I guess.
Bummer.
I don't know. Okay. I'm sorry, Muhammad. I don't want you to unfriend me from
I won't unfriend you. No, you're welcome to not. It's good. I know I'm biased because of past watching it.
just a little scratch on what I got. So
all right,
we'll see.
Everybody at home, episode 122. That's Falling Towers episode. WTF 122. That's the other one where Kelly was not too pleased with a particular show. No spoilers, but go check that out. She was kind of right. Tanya, what did you actually get upon viewing this first episode?
I found, kind of similar to what Kelly was saying, I found the emotional pacing very strange. Like, it started out with this this is the apocalyptic emotional roller coaster. Like, oh my gosh, everything is coming to an end. Like, we're under attack. It feels very appropriate. And then suddenly you have like this huge right turn when Starbuck is trying to hit on Athena, and like they're just acting like nothing really happened. You're like, wait a minute, her brother just died, and you're like, maybe we should talk about our relationship. And then you would have like some more serious things happen, and then a scene that would again feel like comically out of place. So that sort of pacing was strange. I also didn't like that until I can't remember, is it like every emotional reaction is some hysterically over emotional reaction from one of the like two women that you see anywhere on the ship before everybody comes together, and it's like very overacted and terrible. Like Athena just screaming. But you had one scene, I think it's Ty, where like they show people just standing there very stoic and like Athena's crying, and then you get one tear out of Ty's eye. I'm like, okay, cool, we get emotion out of one of the guys on this bridge. And then kind of on the flip side of that, I found Adama to be almost like too emotional, but he was still stoic. Again, though, I think I was comparing him a lot to like Edward James Olmos's rendition of Adama, which was like very different from this portrayal of Adama. I wasn't like moved by his speech about finding Earth, but if you compare that to like the new Battlestar miniseries where he's like, Earth is out there, I know where it is, I'm gonna get us there, like so say we all. I was waiting, I couldn't remember if so say we all actually happened in the original series. I didn't think it did, but I was kind of waiting for that and like some kind of crescendo at the end of the episode, and it was just kind of like, we're going to Earth, maybe we'll find it, I don't know where it is.
Do some spaghetti. Earth. See if it sticks.
All right. Sounds pretty favorable. I'll tell you guys what I actually got. What I actually got was duped, to be honest, because I thought it was going to be a shit show, kind of, because it's super old, and I'm like really prejudiced against old stuff that's unwatchable. But like, I loved it. They totally duped me, because my brain the entire time was like, that sucks, that's embarrassing, that's terrible, yet for some reason I felt like I was just being fooled into loving it. I think I didn't know that was the LA Philharmonic, but I was going to say a lot of that was just this unbelievable music from the very get-go. I was like, where did they get the money to make such great music? I was in love with the effects, maybe my prejudice for old stuff is blinding me, but I would have expected it to look terrible. And these ships from 1978 actually looked really cool. I was like, these look wonderful. They look amazing. It looks much better than I would have expected from the 70s. I just felt like the production value and the artistry of it was through the roof and way better than I could have expected. So I kept just like dismissing bad dialogue and bad acting, and I just kept like, all these things are coming at me, and I've got like a shield against the arrows. Bad dialogue, no. Bad acting, no. I was like blocking away. I'm like, but look at how beautiful it is. Listen to the music, like listen, and also just the idea, the lore of it. It's a beautiful idea. It's a fun idea. It's an interesting idea, and it ended on yes.
Tell you, real quick, I will tell you, I oddly was on the edge of my seat for a unnatural amount more time than I thought I was going to.
It's because they force you to be.
I was like, I felt the same exact way. I thought, well, that's it, man. But I was like, but what's next? Like, I felt myself like, I'm not on my, like, I was just like, oh. So I'm with you on that one. Just saying.
And then the way it ended, I think, it felt like this was just a full movie that was cut in half to make it episodic because clearly that's not where it was meant to end. It said, to be continued. And I was like, there's no way that it was originally like this because had nothing there. So is that right, Mohammed?
Yeah, it was. If I remember correctly, it was a while back. If I remember correctly, it was released as a movie that was basically like the first 3 or 4 episodes, or something like that.
Okay, yeah. So that's what I got. I got a movie a episode that fooled me into liking it. Like they put lipstick on a pig or something, but it was like the best lipstick I could have ever imagined for 45 years ago. But maybe I'm just wrong in my perception of what 45 years ago gave us. I don't know. Am I wrong in that? I mean, Star Wars was 46 years ago, so maybe I'm wrong there.
Yeah, Star Wars was, a major movie that came out. It was like the complete change of everything at that point. So
I felt like this was on that
level.
It's
comparable. Yeah, if it's close, that's amazing. I have to agree with what Tanya said too. When I said there was one character I got really upset about it, it was the whole Star Wars hitting on Athena like minutes after her brother was killed. Like, what the hell are you doing? And like,
that whole
timing,
scene,
bro, timing.
That whole scene. First of all, I mean,
terrible.
That was actually my biggest issue with the show. And if I may just toss in a few thoughts on that. One is he allowed to just walk in like that? Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's locked. Maybe I don't know what's going on there, but it was kind of weird. Secondly, why didn't she redress? She's pulling off her clothes. When he comes, why doesn't she just go, oh, whoops, okay. Instead, she just hides behind the thing with her pants on her ankles for like 18 minutes. And I'm like, at some point you could just pull them up or say, hey, can you just, I'll be with you in just a moment, something. But she just stood there and was like, well, I'm just going to sit here naked, and not pull my clothes up. It was just really strange. But then when he creeps in, like he knows she's half naked, and I'm like, when he walked in closer, that's when I was like, oh God, bro.
Have you?
Yeah, that got weird.
Yeah. Do you remember Wedding Crashers?
Yes.
Movie. Do you remember the part where he goes in and he talks? The dad goes in and talks to Vince Vaughn or whatever in the middle of the night about Todd, and he's sitting there strapped to the bed, and he's talking about how Todd's misunderstood, and he looks over and he grabs the rope and just make sure it's tight, and he goes, "Good night." And like that's funny. That's literally what I was like. This is like a Todd moment. This is like one of those things where he's just sitting there, goes, I just want to tell you. And the whole time she's just like naked. And he's just, yeah. Just saying. I'm just saying. That's what
she had plenty of time when he was like turned around facing the other way, when he was being respectful, but she's just like, no, I'm just going to stand here. Maybe wait till he leaves. And then he doesn't leave. He comes closer. And then, I mean, she did like, turn to hide herself even more inside the locker, which again was strange. It was like, I think you only had pulled your sleeve off.
Right.
You could have just been like, oh, okay, let's continue this conversation.
It takes the same amount of time to pull up your whatever strap as it does to hide behind all. It's the same amount of effort and time, right?
Totally.
Okay. I guess no disagreement on that scene.
No disagreement there. I thought that was the cringiest part. That's the only place I have a frowny face in my notes.
Yeah, like, I wore a frowny face there. And I was like, give me more lasers and music. I don't want this. What do you guys think of the character dynamics? Like, did you feel like any of the relationships, you were invested in any of the relationships or dynamics there?
I don't know if we had much chance to see it because they often weren't together. Like the ones who knew each other the best weren't together that much.
Yeah, I feel like this. So I watched the part 2 as well because I didn't. I thought that maybe for watching the first episode, I was supposed to watch both parts. So I'm trying to like remember what happened in the second part and not mention it here. But I feel like we didn't get a ton of character development in this first episode, other than establishing like who each person is. Sort of. You're like, okay, Starbuck's the hotshot pilot. Apollo's the son of Adama, and he's got this brother who like doesn't really know what he's doing, kind of thing. But other than like kind of that scene of Apollo, Starbuck, and Zach all talking to each other, I feel like the most of the rest of it was just kind of like chaotic battle scenes and like not really them actually going into it. So I assume in future episodes we'll see more of the characters interacting, but not a lot yet.
Yeah. Kelly, you were not invested at all in the characters, were you?
I mean, I liked so the two were they brothers, the two fellas that went out flying and one didn't make it back.
Zach.
The firstborn didn't make it back. Yeah, I actually
think Zach's the younger one. I think Zach is younger. I think Zach's younger.
Okay, so I liked honestly like their short interaction when they went out to go check it out, make sure everything or go on patrol or whatever. When they went, patrolling, I thought that they honestly I thought they had a good relation. I was kind of I was bummed. I was like, oh man, I was kind of hoping to see where that because he was like, good, I'd fly with you, little brother. Blah blah blah. I thought I was like, oh, and then so I liked that relationship, and then I really would have liked the relationship between the dog on that planet and his owners.
Muffet.
And I have to admit that's when I went.
Mm-hmm.
Now they were good about it being in the 70s and just leaving it to its own demise, but that's okay. We don't get the dog, but I like the brothers, and I liked it was an interesting. I'm curious to know if they get into at all the relationship between the president and the guy who betrayed his whole human race. Because
was that Gaius Baltar?
It's just Baltar. There's no Gaius in this one.
Okay, and that was played by John Colicos that I did not realize of Star Trek lore. Sorry, Kelly, but I was very pleased.
I just want to know, how did it get there? How did it get to that point where he was like, peace out, president, and the rest of the humans, I'm out. Good luck. I'm just curious. That their kind of relationship was just, I was curious about and would like to have known, would like to know more about it, To
be clear, the president was on the Atlantea when it blew up, so the president is gone.
He's toasty.
Yeah,
but I was, I didn't know if there was going to be any background information on how they elected him.
I think Kelly just unknowingly made a nice little Battlestar Galactica pun when she said toasty.
Oh, it's true. Toasters. Yeah. What did you guys think of going to Ryan's question, what did you think of the reaction between Apollo and Adama when Adama was on the planet going through the pictures of his wife and stuff? I mean, that was one place where there's a little bit.
It was just
it was weird, but I was okay with it simply because I did feel like it was, that's just part of the age. I was more forgiving in that scene, than I knew it was going to be that time era of I was a lot more upset about he was my firstborn rather than, but I kind of liked it. I mean, it was the mural. But at the same time, I was still she was here. I was like, God. So I kind of liked it.
Yeah, that was a little heartbreaking. But I kind of expected Adama to be a little bit more urgent. Hey, yo, we got to get out of here. And just Apollo letting him kind of do his thing while he's these people are going to come and maybe pitchfork us. We got to leave. That scene just kind of seemed like it drug out a lot longer than it should have. But it was very sweet.
Yeah. Agreed on all.
Yeah, I also felt like there should have been, Tanya, I think you touched on it a little bit. It felt like if most first episodes are like a graph, you kind of see it kind of going up and up and up. This one kind of went up like this and then kind of just died down and kind of ended on a low point. And it was just a very strange. It was a really strange structure and emotional, roller coaster. And I just kind of felt like all those battles should have been more towards the end or spread out, rather than just kind of felt like it was just going on for 30 minutes, which was fun, in a lot of ways, because they were showing off, their skill, the art team and, all that kind of stuff, which is great. But it made me wonder the script that was actually on the table when they were reading it. How good was the actual script, or were they just selling them on the concept designs? Yeah, but look at this and look at that. Don't worry too much about the script. Just look at this great model that we have. And if that's how this thing got made, because I'm not sure if the script, the idea, the concept, the Bible, all the imagery was fantastic, I thought, but the script itself, but again, Muhammad, that might just be because, like you said, it was originally a 2 or 3 hour epic event, so we're just seeing the first part of that.
I have a question for Tanya. So I was surprised when they mentioned this thing about the Earth was in another galaxy. I was like, "Whoa, that's like really far away." Especially since I don't think they don't have the jump drive that the new series has. Like, it's gonna take y'all a really long time.
And they don't know where to go.
I think they kind of did for this. This isn't like the other one where in the new series, Adama just kind of made up the Earth and kind of hoped it was true.
I was baffled because they said, where is Earth? And he just said, it's somewhere outside of our galaxy. Like, you got no chance, dude. I do not know the mathematical equation to explain what your chances are, but my brain can't conceive that it's a statistical zero. But sorry, what was your question for Tanya, Muhammad? That just
what you thought of the galaxy piece, because that jumped out like, whoa.
Oh yeah, it's like if it's in another galaxy and you don't have warp drive, y'all are never going to get there.
Neither are your kids.
Maybe in like a million generations, we'll be there.
Yeah.
I don't know. But it does tell you what our understanding of space and science and all that was in 78.
There's no Google then, too.
Entertainment companies' understanding of space was even less than that. Because I'm sure in 1978, and Tanya, maybe you can elaborate on this, in 1978, our scientists still had a pretty good concept of the vastness of space and that you could not just travel from one galaxy to the next. And if you did not know what you were looking for, you just knew it was outside of your galaxy, the chances of you finding it's a zero. And they knew that, right?
I mean, we still today are like, maybe there's another planet past Neptune. We don't really know if it's there, but like math tells us maybe it's there. So even something in our own backyard, you can have a hard time finding, much less saying like, we think there's a planet somewhere in another galaxy that we might have come from. It's like, okay, but where are you going to find any kind of breadcrumbs to figure out where that planet might be? Like,
you don't know
it's
what
a
direction
little
to go.
Yeah, there literally every direction is available to you.
And did you guys know that I'm a big fan so when I lived in LA, one of my favorite places to go was the Griffith Observatory. And did you know that our universes are actually expanding?
Mm.
I bet we all
I didn't make it up. It was in the show. I always go
That's
to.
my prediction.
What?
It's true.
I just predicted that all three. I'm like, if I know that, I'll bet you Muhammad and Tanya know this as well. But yeah, it's expanding. Isn't it expanding? I don't want to get into that kind of talk. We got to talk about it.
We can actually predict how far away it is from Earth because in a later episode in the season, they pick up a transmission of the moon landing. And that would presumably, like the video signal from that would be presumably traveling at the speed of light. So you can figure out then how long that is and how far away they are. So.
Oh, and just a tidbit, just so you guys know, on January 30th, Mars is going to be behind the moon, I think, for a little bit and then come back up.
Cool.
Yep.
That's always
like a Mars clips.
Yeah,
so everybody that sees this, go back and check that out.
Instagram or Facebook or must be show stuff.
Yeah, check that out. It's timey-wimey stuff. Well, Muhammad gets mad if I don't ask this question, so I'm just doing this to avoid his scorn. Who was your favorite character on this show, on this episode?
You're asking me or you're asking the others?
You.
Oh, I mean, from this episode alone, not Starbuck for sure. Maybe Zach was kind of interesting because I'd actually completely forgotten Zach was even in this series. I thought he was just in the reboot. I didn't remember he was in this one too. Maybe Zach. Boomer's always fun, but maybe Zach.
Kelly, did you have a favorite character? Was it the lady that started crying super hard out of nowhere for no reason?
No, it wasn't her. But I mean, I technically I didn't really have a favorite character, but I will say one of the characters I was really excited, like just again, one of those moments where I'm just like, why am I so invested in, like, if I hate it so much, why am I so invested? That little like I mean, the lady of the, not lady of the night, but like
Cassiopeia.
the rebel hoe or whatever, the one that
Yeah.
like go away,
I think they called her a
away.
comfort
Like,
lady, I think, in the show.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so she's like, I'm not anybody. And she takes off her robe and she's like, got this, like, all this extra skin showing and the red dress. And I was like,
Yeah.
but I'm more like, actually, like, really, like, where do you, like, why is everyone hating on you, girl? Besides, that you're showing a little extra skinny skins. Like, where are you coming from? But so she was, I mean, I don't want to say like she's my favorite character because she was there for all of 10 seconds, but like definitely a character that I was like, oh, Kelly, here we go again. Like, now I want to know, like, what's the story behind that?
Yeah, this is her here in a new outfit.
Oh, in a more conservative.
Spoilers.
Yeah.
Nice hair that was kind of going out like that.
Yeah. She's next to Ryan too, above the kid.
What'd you say her name was? Cassiopeia?
Yeah.
Okay. Tanya, did you have a favorite character?
I don't feel like I really gravitated toward anyone. I did admire how, like, in the brief amount of screen time that Starbuck gets, you're like, wow, yeah, he is a jerk. So you want to hate him as a character, but you're like, they really did a really good job in acting this terrible character. I also forgot that Zach was in this at all. I thought they just made him up in the new series so that you had some reason for Starbuck and Apollo to be close as like male and female characters. So that's where seeing the new series kind of sucks because you're like, oh, he's gonna die, and I was just waiting, like, how long is he gonna stick around? Is he actually gonna be here for more than one episode? So he gets his 5 minutes of screen time, and then he's gone. It's like, oh, I feel like you could have done more with a little bit of the dynamic between the brothers, or the dynamic of, well, all three siblings now, since you have 3 in this version versus 2 in the new series. So yeah, that was a very rambly way of saying I don't feel like anybody has like jumped out to me yet as like caring about them too much.
Yeah.
Wait, we decided in the pre-chatter we all really like Boxy, right? He's our favorite character.
Is that the little guy that looks like he's on a candy commercial over here that we didn't luckily have to see?
Noah Hathaway is the actor.
He looks like he talks like this. I want a lollipop, mommy. Give me one right now, damn it. That's what he looks like.
The dog, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's more on the dog plot in the future if you do watch more, Kelly.
Boy,
I was like, there has to be. Yes. I knew it. So the dog's not done.
The dog is dead. That dog is dead, but there's more dog plot in general.
I want to tell you all who my favorite character is, since I've had plenty of time to think about it while you guys were giving me ideas. It's like, because I don't feel like any of them really gave us much. There wasn't a lot of character focus or development, but the ones that gave me a little bit, I like Boomer. I like
do you
Herb.
Boomer, or do you like Herb Jefferson Jr.?
That's what I'm trying to decide. That may have been my own prejudice, but then, Richard Hatch's character, Apollo, a little bit less, because I just kind of felt like they were all kind of jumbled up in there. We didn't really get much. But the ones that, Cassiopeia or whatever you said her name was, what was cool about her that kind of made me interested was that I was like, oh, cool. Is she a translator? Does she know all these things? Like, what's her story? And that they gave us something in a shorter amount of time than most of the other characters. And why do these people hate her? Are these like, warring factions or, enemy factions or something like that? Or maybe she's a Gemini thing and they're Virgo things or something like that. But they gave us something there. And also Baltar too, just because it was John Colicos and because he was different than I remember Baltar being in the newer series. So I found it to be interesting there. Those were the ones that kind of gave me a little interest to know more. Speaking of wanting to know more, Tanya, we are all dying to know a little bit more about you. And for anybody that doesn't know, can you start us off by telling them, what did you do for NASA?
So I worked in science and mission operations on cameras on a bunch of different Mars missions. So some cameras on the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, which has been in orbit since 2006 and still working today. This, I think, the third oldest orbiter that's still working. And then cameras on the Opportunity, Perseverance, and Curiosity rovers. So usually, depending on which camera, sometimes it was picking what the cameras would take pictures of. Sometimes it was looking at the images when they came back at the other end. Sometimes it was both. So I got to spend a lot of time just looking at Mars every single day.
That's so cool. Oh my gosh. So cool.
You know, I
was also a Martian weather girl with one of those cameras. That was probably my favorite of all the things I've gotten to do. That was honestly my favorite job, because I know there's only like 4 other people that have ever gotten to do that, maybe. So to be in that group of like, yeah, my job was to forecast the weather on Mars every day. It's pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie.
And you currently work someplace else, and you're on sabbatical from that. Let's talk just briefly about where you work now, and then what you're doing for your sabbatical after that.
So right now I work for a company that builds satellites observing the Earth instead. We call Planet. So a little bit of a change, but at the end of the day, a camera is a camera regardless of what it's pointed at. So you can take those skills and transfer them to other planets, which is pretty cool. And I've been on sabbatical for a few weeks now, taking a little bit of a break. And part of it, I've been thinking about some stuff for a fellowship that I recently started with a group called the Aurelia Institute, which spun out of some folks at the MIT Space Enabled Group. And so my project for that is to try to bring together the environmentalist movement and the space movement, because these two groups have become quite at odds with each other, especially recently with a lot of the negativity toward the idea of space, thanks to some of the people that are attached to the idea of space these days and attitudes toward billionaires. And I feel like there are lessons that can be learned on both sides to help each group be more effective in their messaging. And so I'd love to try to bring them together to the table and realize that they have more in common than they might think at the end of the day. We all want to see humans have a great future, whether it is on Earth and other planets or just on Earth. And so let's figure out how we can do that together.
That's awesome. So, I mean, I guess some of the things that I would think of right off the bat, you can correct me on this, is that like you use to get to space, you use a ton of solid fuel and use a lot of components that are often not reusable that end up just like, burning up and flying down or whatever. Is that the challenge, and what are the opportunities there? You mentioned there are some opportunities for collaboration
and curiosity and perseverance.
So I'm not thinking about it in terms of necessarily like rocket launches, just because that is something that there's a lot of work in, like, how do we make fuels that maybe are better for the environment, or reusable rockets, like reusing boosters like SpaceX is doing. But even if you think at the level of things, like there's an instrument on the Perseverance rover right now that is generating oxygen, which is like a model, like a tiny version of an instrument that we would use to generate oxygen for humans to breathe in habitats down the line. But that instrument works by doing carbon capture. It's pulling CO2 in from the Martian atmosphere, ripping the carbon off the oxygen and pumping the oxygen back into the air.
Like
that's the same kind of technology. Yeah, it's like the guy that invented it actually invented artificial trees here on the Earth that kind of work in a similar way. The wind blows through these sensors, for lack of a better word. They pull the carbon and the oxygen apart. The carbon gets sequestered in these little bricks, and the oxygen gets pumped back into the atmosphere, just sort of like a real tree. So this technology that we need to survive beyond Earth is the same kind of technology we need to live, both to terraform the Earth and to live more sustainably here, not just from a rocket standpoint, but things like sustainable food packaging, sustainable clothing technology. Like we don't have stuff to make things like polyester on Mars. So what are we going to do to make clothes in space? There's a lot of little things that we might take for granted every day because we have so many resources here. But once you start wanting to live sustainably elsewhere where there aren't a lot of resources, you got to rethink a lot of that. But you can take that knowledge and then also use it to live more sustainably here, because we might live like we have a lot of resources, but they're pretty finite at the end of the day. We have to figure out how we're going to adapt to that.
Wow. Everybody, you heard it here first. According to Tanya, we will be living on Mars in 2025 with this cool new oxygen making
That's really
thing.
fast.
We're
barely get there then.
We're almost there. Here we go. Also, very quickly, Aurelian Institute, that is so amazing and a noble cause, and I think we're all rooting for you there. I wonder where you got the name. Was it the Roman Emperor, or when you said Aurelian, my first thought was that's a Star Trek alien. It's a little known Star Trek alien, so I did a quick Google search to make sure my brain was working properly. Turns out it's not, but I did get this right. This is an Aurelian here, which is very similar to a score, and this graphic is showing the difference in their hair formations and the difference between an Aurelian and a score in Star Trek, the animated series. So where'd you get the name?
I didn't come up with it. It was founded by a woman named, oh my gosh, why am I blanking on Ariel Ekwa? I could not remember her last name. I'm so sorry, Ariel. It's oh gosh. I'm sure if you go to the website for the Institute, the story is on there. I know she explained it at a dinner at one point, and I cannot remember.
So I apologize. Star Trek the animated series. That was it.
There you go. Maybe that's like the secret nerd lingo at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. All right. So that's all really cool. Everybody go check that out. Great stuff. Is it Star Trek related? Is it Roman Emperor? Is it the third option? What were you going to say, Mohammed?
I was just going to ask Tanya, I think Ryan alluded to this sort of, can you tell people where they can follow you online?
You can find me pretty much anywhere as at Tanya of Mars. I'm mostly active on Twitter, but if I am poked to be active other places, maybe I'll start using my other socials again. I've been lax about them recently, but as I reemerge into the world from my sabbatical, I'll probably reappear online.
Nice. I've been
or is TanyaHarrison.com. So
I've been poked to get back into what is it, LinkedIn? Every once in a while, like I get an email from LinkedIn saying somebody messaged you. I'm like, you just don't even try LinkedIn. It's not. We have not been friends for like 15 years. We just move on.
Like I forgot the password.
Yeah, I don't need. Just stop trying so hard. I don't even understand it. Anyway, but that's cool. Everybody go check her out at Tanya of Mars. Great handle, easy to remember, lots of fun. Let's move on. Dr. Noor, he knows he's got the karate chop ready. It is time for the terrible twos.
Bottom line. Line on the bottom. Bottom line.
The bottom line is the final two questions of the show and the two most important questions. Question number one is, Dr. Mohammed Noor, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give this first episode of Battlestar Galactica Part 1?
So, I mean, if I was being objective, I would give it a lower score than I'm actually going to give it. But, I mean, it was fun bringing back the reminiscences and just anticipating what's to come with it. So I'm going to give it probably what would be considered an inflated estimate. But I'm going to give it an 8. 8 out of 10. It probably really deserves something more like a 6, but I'm going to go with 8 anyway.
What about you, Kelly? Scale of 1 to 10. Here it comes.
Well, before I give this score, I guess I'm wondering, I technically have 2 half scores. So one is how good it was, and one is how I feel about it. Does that make sense?
Very much.
Like, there's a lot of shows out there that like are really good shows I don't like, or I really like these shows, but they're really not good. Like The Faculty from 1990 something. Like, it's a really bad movie, but I really like it. So I would say my halves, I'm just going to cut her in half. So do I like it? How do I feel about it? 2. But, how good it was, I would give it a 7. Like, I thought it's one of those shows that, for a show that I really didn't like, I was awfully riveted. So I'm going to give it, so what does that make it like?
Unless you want to do the average, it'd be 4.5, or if you want to, or if you don't want to.
Yeah, let's just, 5. Let's give it a 5. Yep.
She's giving the old Kelly bump up right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Woo.
What about you, Tanya? Do you have two different versions of scores? Do you have one? What do you give it, scale of 1 to 10?
I would say if I was trying to evaluate it solely in a vacuum, like the new series
Space.
didn't exist. Like trying to be objective, more objective than Muhammad, I would probably give it like a 4. Torn between like, was it well done? No. But was the story engaging enough that you want to keep watching? Yes. Like I said, I ended up watching part 2 because, well, I thought maybe we were supposed to for this interview, but I also just wanted to see what was going to happen. I'm like, what's going on now? But I think part of me also just wanted to see what was going to happen because I was enjoying the comparisons to the new show. So if I gave it a score in that context, I think I would bump it up more to like a 6. Like I was impressed at how good the underlying story actually is. And you're watching it, in 2023 with that lens. So it's never going to live up to what you're expecting a show like this could be today. And I think that they had a really great story to work with. The acting is not great, but it was good enough. You kind of want to see where is the story going to go. And how is it going to differ from the way things went in the new series? Because it's obviously going to be very different since the underlying origin of the Cylons is different. So I don't think they're going to stay as parallel as they did in this first episode.
All right. Well, I'll tell y'all what I'd give it on a scale of 1 to 10. I actually got 7 different scores. And
oh my
no,
God.
I'm just kidding. But I felt very conflicted, like the three of you, in that I kind of had two brains, not in concert in any way. And I was just arguing with myself. It got a little violent. I was very upset at myself for a while there. But through the whole, from after like the first 10 minutes, I was like, this is an 8.1.
Wow.
And then all of these things kept happening. My notes are littered with critiques, with things that made no sense, with lasers shooting 100 feet and then exploding in space, which there's absolutely nothing for it to. That's the whole point of space. It's space. It's not a thing. It's space. So there are so many things are like that. And then all those things kept trying to dip it down, maybe a 7.7. And I was like stubborn. I was like, no, 8.1. I like this thing. And then at the end, there was like, or close to the end, there was that scene where Captain Purvey was coming in and be like, hey, can I peek behind that thing since you won't pull up your strap yet after 15 minutes? Even then I was like, okay, I got to drop it down to a 7.7. And then 7-year-old Ryan was like, no, stick to your guns. And so I did 8.1. And every 99% of me is like, it's not an 8.1, but that 1%'s like tough shit. 8.1.
Can I ask a question of all you guys real quick? There were several comments made about that the acting wasn't good. So is it actually like the execution of what was on the page, which that's what I interpret as the acting, or was it the like you were told to cry that doesn't really make sense, and you were told to be stiff and that doesn't make sense?
Well, while Kelly's thinking, I could just toss in because I feel bad, because like I said, I know a couple of these people, and I don't want to like poop on things. Especially, I chalked everything to 45 years ago. That was my excuse. It was 45 years ago. That's just that people weren't as good at acting 45 years ago, and that's why I don't like old stuff. But a lot of it was just it didn't seem like what the person was acting met what it probably looked like on the page. Like a lot of it felt like overacting. A lot of it felt like, why is she talking like that? A lot of it felt like the actors are capturing the mood of the scene and the emotion of the scene, but they're not putting anything into the individual lines. So if it's like a 2-minute scene of somebody like they're acting angry throughout the entire scene because that's their emotion, but the individual words and lines have no variation or ups and downs or anything. They're not putting anything into those. But I don't know. What do you think, Kelly?
From an actor's point of view, I definitely see. Well, so first of all, I definitely overall think it's the 1970 somethings. Like if you look at any of the other movies or shows or anything, even when you go back even further back than the 70s, when you go back to the 50s or the 40s or the 30s, the way that the actors express or talk is it's an era, a time era. It's trapped, I mean, I didn't think it was, I wasn't even that as mortified that he was like, it's my firstborn, because I kind of figured that's the way it was. Like, I keep using that line as my reference, but like, I wasn't mad because he was, this was a horrible, acting, blah, blah. I just kind of knew it was going to be like that. But I just, but at the same time, and then I have a feeling like the screaming, yelling, or crying or whatever, those are straight up like the director's like, all right, I'm going to have you do it like, and go. Like, I'm sure that like I would put money on it that the director at the time was like, okay, so when I say this is what we're going to do. Action, and so it was I think it was a mix of that. And so like when I didn't like like I said, the show of it and even the acting, it wasn't, I already knew kind of like what you said, Ryan, where like, that you're going into it being like, it is a period piece, if that makes any sense. So like knowing that it is in its own time, it gave a lot of like, not excuse, but a lot of like forgiveness, I guess. I was the other parts that I was angry at, you should have just kept the dog.
The dog's acting was pretty good.
I know.
Tanya, any thoughts on the
more
acting?
dog things to come. Just say it again.
It felt like there was a mix of overacting and underacting and nothing in between, in my opinion. But did you feel anything?
Yeah, and I'm wondering if we're like giving them too much of a pass on the era, because if you think of Star Wars, for example, like the acting itself feels dated compared to more modern films, but there was a lot more range in the delivery of the dialogue in Star Wars compared to in Battlestar Galactica. So I think, and maybe that will get better with future episodes. The pilot of a lot of shows is always, people are kind of finding their footing, so maybe it won't be quite so bad, even with giving it the excuse of being 1978. But I think you kind of nailed it. It's either severe overacting or monotone delivery of a line, and it doesn't feel appropriate for the moment that like has been built up to that individual scene.
Yep, that's what it was: overacting and underacting, in my humble opinion. But I didn't know how to act in 1978 either, so who the hell am I to talk? Anyway, so here's question number 2. The question is, for the purposes of this podcast, we all had to watch the first episode of Battlestar Dramatica Part 1. But now that the podcast is over and we're free to move about the internet, would you, of your own volition, we may have a hint on one of these, watch the second episode? Dr. Muhammad Noor, would you watch the second episode of your own volition?
I would. Yet again, even. I'm curious to follow it a little bit further on, at least until the point where they get to Cobol again. Because again, a lot of it follows the reboot. So I would be keen to follow several bits of that.
What about you, Kelly? Would you watch the second episode?
Ryan, I would not watch the second episode.
Oh,
you delivered that like Maury Povich.
But you don't want to know what's going to happen with the dog storyline. Even that's not enough of a motivator.
Another weird question. If you asked me in the 90s or in the early 2000s where we only had television, would I watch it? But it's 2023 and there is, 17 platforms out there with blah, 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 that I just, if I'm going to put my time into it this here Saturday evening in Dubuque, Iowa, it's probably not going to be.
Ryan did say
the red dress heathen floats off to. Maybe she runs in the dog. Maybe she doesn't. I don't know, but I guess I'll never know.
Ryan did say now that you're free to move about the internet. So
yeah, that's true. Tanya, I guess we know that you would watch the second. Should we say would she watch the third?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you answered it, Tanya, because you said that you watched it not just because you thought it was part of the show, but because you wanted to see what was going to happen next. So I feel like you answered the question there.
Is that right?
Yeah. I think I would have continued watching the second episode, even if I hadn't thought I was supposed to watch it for this interview. And I feel motivated now, having watched the second episode, which I do feel like, spoiler, it's a lot better in the character side of things than the first episode
what a
was.
relief.
And it left me at a point where I was like, okay, I want to know what the heck is going on in like this new setting, and like figuring out who all these people are, what are their stories, like the whole thing with Baltar, like why is he evil in this version of the show? Like, I don't know. I feel like, especially since it's such a low commitment, there weren't that many episodes, I'll probably keep watching it.
How many were there?
I don't remember.
Yeah, I feel like it's like 12 or something very easy.
Like it's more than that, but it's not a ton. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But skip
right.
skip Galactica 1980.
Nope. WTF Galactica 1980. We're gonna skewer that thing if it sucks. And if it's good, who knows? But I will tell you, for me, I'm probably not gonna watch this, let's be honest. But the question is, would you? And yes, I would. I feel like episode 1 did enough for me to say that yes, I would. I was just shocked at how good the production value was. And I was like proud of them. I was like, wow, good job, guys, with long sideburns and lamb chops and whatever, the people back with their big old handlebar, whatever they had in 1978. But like, good for them. The music was amazing. And they just come at you. They're like, pay attention to me from second number 1. Come listen, focus, don't do anything else. And, and I thought that the ship models were amazing. I would. I feel like they put their heart and soul into this. And it was fun. It was a fun time. It was a raucous good time. But there you have it. Sorry, Kelly, you said no. We're going to have a viewing party and have, it's going to be so fun. There going to be dogs with us? It's going to be so much fun.
There'll be dogs.
I'll tell you more after this
and
ends.
Make sure you save the dog.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you more after this ends that might change your mind, but I don't want to put a spoiler on the video.
Uh-oh. All right, everybody. So thank you all for joining us. If you'd like us to review a show, in the comments below, type WTF and the show, and also parenthetically where we can view it. So, for example, you would say WTF, that 70s show on Hulu, I don't know if that's
or
what
that
it is.
90s show now. That 90s show is now out.
That 90s show on, HBO Max.
Yeah.
Or this was on a Tubi. We watched it, right, Mohammed?
Tubi, yep, Tubi TV.
All right. And that's what they gave us at the end, followed by continued. All right. So, when it said to be continued, never mind.
Yeah, I got it.
We should have ended this show a minute ago. All right. Anyway.
This podcast.
Yeah. And happy Virtual TrekCon 4, everybody. This podcast was straight out of 1978, sans handlebar mustaches.
This podcast was constructive yet kind to some classic sci-fi.
Oh, man. This podcast was out of this world with one arm. Fun. It was out of this world fun.
This podcast was a blast from the laser-filled past.
Yes.
Oh, I love it. That was good.
All right. So everybody, thanks so much for joining us. We will see you next time. And until then, always remember what Michael Canyon Rosenberg likes to say.
There are those who believe. No, just kidding. Don't forget to be an organ donor. And don't forget to watch the first of things.
All right. Freeze frame like your Starbuck. No, wait. What was this guy? Yeah, Starbuck leering on that poor lady in the locker room.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that.
That shitty smile and pretend that